Hi, my name is Chris Mitchell with DevilCat Amplifiers, CMG guitars, and Clerk Hound software. I am from Statesboro, Georgia. I'm a guitar builder, engineer, designer, and musician. I own a music store called Pladd Dot Music, and we started as a small mom and pop and then launched a mini little empire down here in Statesboro, Georgia.
Welcome to Scratch Claw Push, a podcast about artists clawing out a place for themselves in the world. I'm Billy Joe Cones.
And I'm Brendan Duke. Let's go. And you started out in like an even smaller town in Hagan, Georgia. So you might have to explain to people where that is.
Yeah, that's correct. So, about 22 miles from Statesboro is a small little town called Claxton, and its sister city is called Hagan. And I'm from Hagan, which is, I think we had a population of about 4,000 people when I was there growing up. No stoplight, no stop sign, nothing like that. We had stop signs, sorry, just not traffic lights. We did have to stop at a cross intersection. But I went to school in a small town called Claxton High School. But when I got to college, I did take on my very first student as a guitar instructor as soon as I was a freshman, and I still lived in Hagan. So technically, Pladd Dot's first student definitely started at my house in Hagan. That's true.
So how you and I met was there was a brief period where I tried to be a music major. It didn't last very long, but you were one of the few people in that department who was nice enough to talk to an outsider. And of course, I found out you had a band at the time, which you guys gigged all the time down there. You tell us about that.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, part of the reason I chose to go to Georgia Southern was I had already started a band in high school, and we were a really active band. And then, my freshman year, I said, well, okay, if I go out of state, or if I not out of state, but if I go to, UGA or something like that, I had my own a couple different colleges. I thought, I'm going to have to reform over there. I'm going to have to figure out some new things. And I said, music's the only thing I care enough about to get a degree in. So therefore, I've got, three other great musicians that I'm playing with. So why not just continue that at Georgia Southern? Won't be too far from home. I can kind of, hone my craft a little bit, and then, and play with my friends that I wanted to. So we did. We played, all through college, and then we released two albums after, two albums together, and signed a small little indie deal while we were in college, just after college. And it was great, and I still, to this day, I still play with those guys. Like, we did a Wallace Green reunion show last year, and it was great. We released a new single. It was a new single written in 1999. I like to say it was a brand new single written in 1999. And it was funny. It was, we're just best of friends. And so, I play with new guys now too, with the name, the Chris Mitchell Band or the Chris Mitchell Trio, but Wallace Green they'll always be my best friends, and we'll always still play together. We enjoy each other's company.
So what was the band called?
The band in college was called Wallace Green, like Wallace, like the name, the Scottish name, I guess, if you will, and green like the color. But it was, my grandfather's name was Wallace, so we named the band after him in a weird spot. His name wasn't Wallace Green. It was just, long story on that one, but so we just named it after that, and it stuck,
Nice. And so then, when you got out of college, so you had the band for how long?
So we formed Wallace Green probably in 1995. I was in college in 93 with another band, and then we formed Wallace Green in either 94 or 95. And then what happened was we played for the next, we played until 2001 as Wallace Green. And the reason why it was 2001 is because it was after 9/11. After 9/11, I was at that age where I was in my, I was 26, 27. And it dawned on me that, even though I love playing with these guys and that's all who I want to play with, I know that was going to put my full-time career in music, and I wasn't going to do anything else. And I told the guys, I said, hey, look, if that's what you want to do, you're always my go-to band. I will always book you. I'll always hire you, even when I changed the name of the Chris Mitchell Band. I said, but if you can't make it, I've got to be able to do it, because I'm putting all my eggs in this basket. So they understood. They weren't like, it wasn't like, oh, we're breaking up the band or anything like that. We still kept the name Wallace Green to do Wallace Green shows, but then I started migrating to some other stuff that I wanted to do so that they could, still play along with me. And it turned out to be, the best decision, because both of the other guys moved up to Atlanta, and so so at that point I didn't have to start over. I was just the continuation of what I did with other people playing with me. So it was it's kind of how I sort of thought that could happen. I just, wanted to make sure they understood that I wasn't trying to be, as we like to say, a benevolent dictator. It was just, I thought this is what the best way I would do to protect sort of my brand and what I wanted to do.
And you quickly, I think thereafter established Pladd Dot. Well, you had actually, I guess, like, tell us the story of like Plaid, the whole Pladd Dot label. This has kind of become your thing, but it's like it's kind of evolved. I remember, I think y'all were using the term even when you were still like doing the Wallace Green thing.
We were, yeah.
I was there, and then it's kind of grown since then. Tell us about that.
There's actually a really interesting story on that. So when I was making my first band flyer ever, that was November 17th, 1993. We were playing in Statesboro. It was my first gig in Statesboro. I was making the band flyer, and it was, my mom again was a city clerk over in Hagan. So it's 3:00 in the morning. I'm at the city hall, illegally Xeroxing these flyers, right, with the city money, and I'm drawing with my Sharpie, and I'm nodding off. I'm exhausted. My head's bobbing back and forth. And then when I wake up, my Sharpie, had put a big black dot on the page. And I went, it's 3:00 in the morning. I don't have any whiteout. I don't have anything to get this damn thing off with. So I said, all right. So I just put the black dot underneath it, and everybody, after about a week and running the flyers, everybody goes, why do you have a black dot, on these flyers? And I said, well, you'll see. And I had no clue what I was going to do to follow that up with. And so I went home that day and I'm talking to Brian, our bass player. I said, hey, man, everybody said that everybody's noticing this black dot. That's getting a lot of people's attention. I've had 20 people ask me about it, which means I know that they're looking at the flyers, right? I didn't know that that's working. This is, of course, way before social media. So none of the millennials or Gen Z are out there. They'll understand. None of them will understand what I'm talking about here. But, way before then, you had to print everything out on paper, right? So, and I told Brian, I looked at him, I said, hey, man, it'd be really cool if, if we could afford color. And we could make the dot plaid. And I went, like plaid, like I'm making a plaid dot. And I went, oh man, that sounds really good. That's got a nice ring to it. So I'll tell you what, man, by the time we come out with this second album, if we don't have a record label yet, let's call the name of our business Pladd Dot Music. And that'll be our music publishing and printing, and that'll be our record label. And he goes, okay, I like it. He said, but he looks me square in the eye and he goes, but here's the thing. Let's spell it Pladd, because Plaid looks like played. And I went, it does, So here's two morons in our college apartment, that basically deciding our fate. And that's how Pladd Dot. And then that was probably around 1996. I designed the logo in 96, did a refresh in 97 of actually making it plaid when I started learning graphic design in 96. And then I officially launched the new Pladd Dot logo in 99. And when I was teaching out of my house after graduating college, and that's when Pladd Dot became its first entity. It was just in a home instead of a storefront,
So Pladd Dot, when you started it, what was it started as then?
It did two things. I did all of the booking and marketing with Wallace Green at first. That's what it started out as. Mm-hmm. And when we signed a label with the company out of Arizona, my agreement with them was, okay, we'll sign the label and all this. I'll give you the rights to do this. But I said, I want you to put my logo on the back. And they said, okay. And my thought was that, hey, if they go the way of the dodo, again, I got to look out for myself on this. So here I am having, 5,000 copies of my logo out there. So there are 5,000 people out there that have heard of Pladd Dot Music, right? And so, a lot of those people didn't leave Statesboro after college. A lot of those people that bought our albums, they stayed around. So Pladd Dot to them has been in the sort of in their mind, in the back of their mind for at least since 1999. And that's when they started seeing the printed logo. So, the funny thing is that it started out like you asked, Billy. It started out with just the marketing and the booking for Wallace Green, and then in 1999, I used it as the name for my lesson studio, Pladd Dot Music, and then we did lessons as well.
So you were brand building before you probably even knew what that was.
That's true, actually. It's like I said, it's some things are serendipitous and they just happen, and sometimes catch a little lightning in a bottle, and you just run with it.
Yeah, it really seems like that was kind of the case. I guess since branding wasn't a buzzword then, what was it that was driving you to look out for yourself? Like, was there something that made you think of that?
Yeah, always in the back of any person that wants to be a musician is thinking. Even though my degree was music education, I didn't want to teach in the public school system. So I'm thinking, okay, I really like the size of the town of Statesboro. I really like that the fact that, I play live music and I'm able to entertain people, and I like, teaching some lessons. But the idea of branding, that was out of necessity. It was like, I've got to make sure I can eat, right? So, and it always has been in my DNA to have more than one revenue stream. So I never just wanted to make it just as a live musician. If I did, I would have moved to New York or LA, right? And I never wanted to just make it as a teacher, because I've always taught, or if I just want to do it as a teacher, I would have just taught public school. So I enjoyed teaching private guitar lessons, and then I enjoyed teaching, then I enjoyed, performing. So I already had two revenue streams among, graduating college. And then it was, okay, now how do I, the reason why it started with other instructors and whatnot is because I was really fortunate in that I got really popular as an instructor. And so not only did I have 35 students I was teaching a week, but then I had 35 on a waiting list. So if any kid ever dropped, I would pick up the phone, make one call, and then it was full again. So and the way it worked was whoever answered first. It was kind of like a lottery type system, right? They would put their name on my waiting list and I would call through. And again, so I had, 35 kids and then 35 on a waiting list. So then it dawned on me, you know what? I need to hire one of my really good students to teach some of these other people on my waiting list, because some of these kids are going to go all through high school and never be able to take guitar lessons, And so I saw that as a need. So that's when we launched, in about 2003, we launched the first physical location in Brandon. That was a store called Music Alley. They had a retail store down below, and I rented out the music school space above them. So we were still two separate companies, but they ran the music store side and I ran the music school.
So at what point did you start, or I guess where did the idea of actually setting up a proper music store, where did that idea take hold? Or was it something that just kind of grew up? Okay, you're out of you're above, you're already kind of in the building, and then maybe at some point you just go, well, I mean,
no, this was
about.
No, I'll tell you exactly when that happened. Brian and I were on the way to a show, and we were in our van. I don't remember where the show was, but we were in our van. And so we're on the way to a Wallace Green show. And I think we were meeting Larry somewhere. I think he was driving separate or something like that. I don't remember exactly why we were separate. But anyway, it was Brian and I on the front of the van. And we're on the way to a show. And he was telling me after college, he was going for these interviews and these jobs. And he was telling me, yeah, man, I'll have my own cubicle and I have my own phone. And dude, this was the craziest thing. I just felt the world close in all of a sudden, because I knew, holy crap, if this is the route he goes with this. So I look at him, I said, hey man, well, why don't we start a music store? And it was like I knew exactly that's what I should do. I mean, there was no doubt that that's exactly what I didn't know how it would happen. And he goes, okay, yeah, that's good. So I immediately called my brother, because Mark had worked at a music store before. And I said, hey man, this was before Music Alley. And I said, hey, think about launching a music store. So we met with Don Cannell, who is a radiologist friend of mine. And he said, yep, I'm all in. And so he was the owner of the music store. He and my brother were co-owners of that. And I ran the music school above him. This all happened fast. This all happened within 6 months. So I say I want to do it. All of a sudden, that following, maybe a year down the road, we've got the store open, insane, maybe even less than that. I can't quite remember the date, but I think it was less than that. So, and they, Don was a great friend of mine. As he got in the music store business, I think he realized it's not the same as, radiology, and it's not what he'd been doing. You know what I mean? And so he just decided to kind of get out. And when he did, I had then my studio was 75 kids. Well, now I can't shut my damn doors. I've got 75 kids. So then we we rented a location downtown that was 1,500 square feet. And so we went from 600 square feet to 1,500 square feet. And then we had about 575 square feet left over in the front. And that's when I decided to put the music store inside. I said, okay, well, I'll buy the type of instruments that can support my students. And that's what that was about. So that's when retail began. Retail began in 2005.
It sounds like you're just hopping from one wave to the, by the time one wave's about to break, you're already catching the next wave, coming up to the shore.
Yeah, I am always, I don't know if some of it is, I wouldn't say I think I'm always just trying to find an opportunity to do what I enjoy. And I do a lot of things. I mean, like this morning, this morning I was laser engraving a guitar for a customer. And then right after that, I decided to print a one-off T-shirt. And then before that, I was doing a training with my employees on our new forms for our software. And so I like to stay busy. So when you're busy and you do put yourself out there a lot, you kind of you try to, put as many feelers out there, what's going on, right? I mean, some people would do that in whatever world they're in, and they, want to know what's hip and whatnot. I kind of do that with what's going on, what's out there, where can I contribute, right? Where can I make a difference? And actually, my wife always says I have a knack for kind of finding the gaps, right? Where are the gaps? And so I knew there were lesson gaps in Statesboro. That was obvious. There were lesson gaps. And actually, it was Jake Hallman, like you mentioned, Jake. It was Jake that had mentioned he and a buddy talked about doing that. But the buddy moved on, and Jake, it wasn't what he wanted to do. And I thought that was such a great idea. So I kind of kept on doing that, and it's kind of an interesting thing.
So to piggyback off what Brandon just said about the whole catching each wave, was there any point when you felt a little like, I didn't quite catch that, or I feel, because like I feel like
100%.
At some point have a fumble where we don't quite get on top of it and we feel pushed down by that wave.
Yeah, you can be as good at riding waves and seeing the waves all you want, but you don't know if there's sharks underneath you. And I'll tell you one that I came across. This was, and I'll share this with you guys. I'm completely transparent about everything. So after we launched, so I was the home run kid at first. Every single thing I did, it was, hey, I want to teach lessons out of my house. Oh, great. Now I've got 35 students in my house. Okay. I want to open another place. Great. Now I've got 35 and another 35. Great. Now I've got 2 instructors. Now I've got 7 instructors. Now I want to open a music store. Great. It's full and our lesson studio is full. So, okay. Then I decided, hey, I want to manufacture guitars and amplifiers, right? Or guitars. So when I started manufacturing guitars my first run, I did an import run. My first run sold out, like 40 something guitars sold out. So I knew that there was a need in the market for that. Well, then I said, you know what? I had a Vietnam vet come in the store. He was our postman, and he came in the store one day and he said, Chris, where are you getting the guitars from? And he said, how's the guitar business? It's going good, Herb. He said, where are you getting them from? And I said, we pulled this number in, this order from Vietnam. And I looked up and I saw his hat and it said Vietnam vet. And honestly, I felt like the biggest piece of shit on the planet, because here I am just, window shopping into China and didn't have any real skin in the game of actually, manufacturing stuff. So, and he looked at me square in the eye. I said, well, don't forget about us over here. And it was like somebody drop kicking me in the chest. And I mean, I went home and told Ashley, my wife, I said, look, we got to figure out a way to build them here. So I'm saying all that to just say is I knew that when I started manufacturing in our factory here that I was going to have to still bring in some imports to offset the cost of manufacturing, because it was going to take me 6 months, a year before I spun up my manufacturing. So that was going to give me some extra revenue. Well, Gibson decided that they did not like the guitars that I was bringing in. So they scoped us out at the trade show, and, then they contacted U.S. Customs, and they told U.S. Customs that I was bringing in bootleg Gibsons. So U.S. Customs, when my shipment of guitar came in, and we're talking $60,000 worth of guitars. When the shipment came in, Gibson, I wasn't getting any calls from Customs, nothing. Nobody calls me, nobody called me. All of a sudden, it's way past the August date. And now I'm into the end of September and in August, and no one's calling me. And I'm paying these crazy demurraging fees at the port. Well, what happened was all of a sudden 2 Homeland Security agents show up on my door with Glock G20s on their side. And, of course, they're not drawn. It's not like they're drawn at me, but they're wearing them on their hip, And they're like, hey, we want to talk to you about your bootleg Gibsons. And I said, my what? And they said, yeah, we want to talk to you about your bootleg Gibsons. I said, look around, man. I said, my name is Chris Mitchell. They were in my music store. I said, look around. I said, my name is Chris Mitchell with Chris Mitchell Guitars. I said, I manufacture American-made guitars. Well, anyway, I pointed out the Paul Reed Locksmith to them. I actually had a copy of it sitting on my desk, and I gave it to them. I said, you guys need to go home and read this, because this case was solved back in 2006 in the, I think the 6th District Court. And it immediately I realized I was in trouble right then, because all of a sudden I had Homeland Security knocking on my door for no reason. and Customs was not calling me back. So I'm like, oh shit, I've got $60,000 invested in this. So I made a call to John Barrow, Congressman, and I said, hey, John, my name is Chris Mitchell. I'm a manufacturer of guitars here in Statesboro. I said, I need some help. I'm not getting any call from Customs, and they're blah, 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 blah. And within 5 minutes of hanging up from John, my phone rang. It was U.S. Customs. John was awesome. John Barrow is awesome, man. And U.S. Customs called me, and I basically had to go through they still accused me of bringing in bootleg Gibsons. I had to go through the appeals process. It took 3 years, and I won the case. But in between that time and it started, I'm not going to lie to you. You asked, Billy, was I ever kicked off the wave? Not only did I fall off the wave, I'd scratched against the coral. I bumped my head against the floor bed, and I went into depression for about 2 years because I'd pissed away $60,000. The bank didn't trust me anymore. I didn't trust my own decisions anymore. I really was, thank God I have a wonderful wife and a company and people around me that love me, because I second guessed at that point. I second guessed every decision I made at that point for the next 2 years easily. I second guessed and before that, like I told you, when I made the decision about the store, it was like lightning. I knew it was right. Don't ask me any questions. I know it's right. Go forward. And, that's how I was. What was scary is that I didn't have that anymore. I couldn't trust that because I didn't trust myself. So I did, after winning the case, of course, it still took a while to get back over the initial shock, but I was definitely out of my depression at that time. And we were already manufacturing guitars only in the United States. So I had a whole other skill set, right? The things that I didn't know, prior. Now I had a whole different skill set. So yeah, that was a fucking roller coaster. I kid you not. And I would not wish that on anybody,
So what was the thing that got you over that hump? I mean, was it just winning the case, or was it just, or is it just kind of like you're just kind of blindly plowing ahead because you've got all these kind of obligations that you've already set forward, and it's just eventually you just find yourself over it?
Yeah, that's actually what it was, Brandon. It was not, the winning of the case was like a cherry on top, right? It was like, okay, great. It was like, I won. That's great. And I've got all that legal case framed in my store with the guitar right by it. So, and it says on top, when we beat Gibson, I've got that all. And so it's a great conversation piece, right? But no, it's not like it was a done deal. It's not like we won the case. I was like, oh, hell yeah. And all of a sudden I'm back to normal. I'll trust every decision I ever made. No, it still took me years to trust myself because, I say this, I failed at a lot of things, right? Maybe I didn't play that guitar solo right. Maybe that song didn't come out like I wanted. Maybe the recording didn't end up like I wanted. But I never failed at something that I knew I couldn't fix. And this was something that I was like, oh shit, am I going to be able to fix this? But on your point, Brandon, I had people relying on me, right? I had people relying on me out here. I had people's salary, and people were having kids. And I was like, my God, this is bigger than me. I got to figure this out. I got to pull up my damn big boy pants and figure this shit out, because this is bigger than me, And so you just don't expect to launch a company. Everything's going great. Your sales are going great, all that kind of stuff. And then all of a sudden, Gibson knew damn well I wasn't breaking the law. They were trying to cut my feet out from under me before I could stand. That's what they were trying to do.
That's a pretty common practice from what I've heard just in business in general. I remember hearing a podcast back in the day about, I think it was just about people doing startups and stuff like that. And just, you would not believe some of the just like, not even just underhanded, just borderline, just evil things like how businesses will do to businesses just to get rid of their competition.
Read what Edison did to Tesla. What he used to do to elephants. He used to fry elephants with with AC power to show how dangerous AC was in public. He would publicly execute a fucking elephant. What kind of piece of shit does that? Really. And I'm not going to knock on Edison's brilliance. He was what he was. He was brilliant, but he was also flawed. And so you're right. So he got to a point in his career where he looked at more of it a business thing, and so he went vicious after that. And that's all Gibson can do, right? They can't. They're a big company. They can't move like a speedboat. They can't control their brand the way I can control my brand. Because their buyers control their brand. You know what I mean? And so we're in a small company. Even a smaller company like Ibanez, they can pivot, right? A smaller brand can do that, and like Coca-Cola is going to have to make Coca-Cola. They can come up with an offshoot brand if they want to. But we all saw what happened when New Coke came out. It was not exactly the best thing for them.
No, Coke just keeps buying up all the small brands.
That's exactly right.
Like Budweiser does,
That's exactly right.
Like,
they do that.
Tea brand, that can be under our umbrella too.
Right.
And I guess like as a small business person, like you either want to thrive doing what you're doing, or you want to get to a point where they view you as so much of a threat that they're willing to buy you out for a lot of money.
Right. And with me, with our brands like DevilCat and with CMG, when we first started, we kind of wanted to do 250 guitars a year. I learned shortly after that, that's mid-level manufacturing, and like mid-level, if you're doing, like, for example, G&L does 2,500 guitars a year. So that would have made them 10 times our size. And that's still a very small manufacturing, right? And the problem is with three guys, me, Lane, and James, and I don't take a salary from CMG. I enjoy doing the design work. I enjoy building new products. James and Lane are salaried, and with two guys, myself, three, we can run a tight ship. We know if there's a problem with the way the machine acted, it was my fault because I programmed it. We know if there was a problem with the paint finish, it was James because he's the one that sprayed it. And we know if there was an issue that a measurement was to take it right off a touch off on the CNC. Okay, if Lane machined it, then there you go. So we can identify where the problem is really fast. When you've got 5 people working out there, all of a sudden the fingers start pointing this way. You know what I mean? It's like today you guys can rely on yourselves to be in this podcast and get the job done. Whoever's going to edit it, who's going to put it together. You have assigned roles. Well, when you start mixing those things up, it can be really challenging to get to mid-level. And I just didn't enjoy that. And again, that was in that time frame when Gibson was cracking down on me anyway. So I was hemorrhaging money. So then I thought long and hard, wait a minute, what do I really want to do? And when I realized that, no, I don't care about, I'm not going to ever compete with Gibson or Fender. That's never been an option. I just want to make something that I want to make. I want to have my little thumbprint, something that I want to do. So that's when I figured that out, it became a lot easier to navigate the ship.
So this leads me to my next thing. So, okay, you've already got guitars, but then you get into amps too. So like, I feel like you just said like, well, there weren't enough sharks in this ocean. Let me go find another ocean just to kind of see what the other one was. We got the tiger sharks over here. Let's go check out the Makos.
Let's throw some more scum in the water. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Let's cover myself in blood and jump back in. So no, I mean, it certainly did feel like that for a while. It really did. So, but I got to tell you this. I tell this story all the time. So, I was in Chick-fil-A one day, and I never wear my name badge. I'm not wearing one now because people just kind of know me in town. It's a small town, I've been here long enough. And so when I walk in, I was wearing my name badge, and the guy behind the counter said, "Hey, do you guys repair amps?" And I didn't realize I had my badge on. I said, "What?" He goes, "You repair amps." I went, I kind of look at him dumbfounded. I looked down and I see my name badge. Oh. I said, "No, we don't." I said, it's a dying art. And he said, "Well, that's what I do." And so I said, "Well, okay." I said, "Well, I'll tell you what, just so happens I've got one in the store that my store employee took in. I don't know why he took in because he couldn't fix it, but he never wanted to tell anybody no. He just wanted to try to help him." I said, "So if you can come in after work, and you can fix the amp, I might can find some extra work for you." He said, "Okay." So he came in, and I had already been working with another person on an amplifier idea, Brandon. At this point, I'd already been working with an amplifier idea, but it was going to be just one-off kind of thing, nothing big, and so an idea about it. Well, the week that I walk into Chick-fil-A, my guy tells me, he says, "Hey man, I can't do the amplifier thing anymore." He said, I got a big contract with the government, not making guidance systems, and I got to do that. I went, "Well, okay, there goes my amplifiers, So, but then I walk into Chick-fil-A, Lane tells me this. He shows up after work and he pops open the chassis and he said, he brings out his VU meter and he says, "All right, I'm going to need a 10,000 microfarad capacitor at 85 degrees. And can you get me this with quick snap-ins?" And I went, "How many farads did you say you need?" Like, what is he talking about? So I found the part, got it in. We came in a week later, he fixed the amp. Well, then 1 week after that, this is where it gets terrifying. 1 week after that, the exact same model from a different customer. And it was an Eden Nemesis amp, Brandon. So it was a bass amp, an Eden Nemesis. And there were they were exactly the same model, totally different customer. Came in the next week. So Lane gets there after work and he says, "Wait a minute, is this the same amp I worked on last week?" I said, "Believe it or not, it's not. It's a new one." So he pops open the chassis and he pulls out his leads. He goes, "Yeah, it's got the same failure." He goes, "You know what the problem is?" And I'm like, "Do tell," And he said, they've got this capacitor rated at 85C. It should have been rated at 120C. And then he said, then they wouldn't see the failure. And I went, who are you? And why are you working at Chick-fil-A? Who are you, Sensei? And he said, well, he goes, look, man, I'm going to tell you straight up. He goes, I'm in Willingway right now for treatment for drugs. He said, I'm at Chick-fil-A to have a job that's humbling and blah, blah, blah. And I said, well, tell me about, you can fix all this stuff, right? He goes, yeah, I was in the repair business for 35 years and I can fix anything. I said, well, you ever built an amp before? And he said, no. I said, well, do you think you could? He said, well, I mean, if I had some schematics. I said, he goes, I guess I could. I was like, I can get you schematics. And, all of a sudden, 1 year later, the Jimmy was released. We had our first amp and we launched DevilCat with that one model. And now I think we have like 9 or 10 models. Always got new stuff coming out. We just got a new wah pedal that we're about to release. And, our amps have been on the stage with Garth Brooks. And it's like, so I don't make decisions based on what you would call rational thought, because it's not rational, right? To meet somebody that tells you they're in Willingway and they're in for treatment and you say, hey, I'm going to start an amplifier company with this guy. That's not a rational thought. What that is I see somebody with some serious potential and talent. And I just want to attract those people and attach myself to these people, right? Because he had a skill set that I knew was a dying art, but I knew he was damn good at it. And I was 100% right, so.
What you're doing sounds really more like just inspired problem solving.
Yeah.
Whether it's like you're going from like starting the store to starting the guitar brand to starting the amps. It's like generally with a lot of businesses, they see like a need and, like in the marketplace, mm-hmm. and they go and they try to fill it. But you're doing that, but it's also kind of like, okay, maybe I'm not the most experienced in this particular area, but I see the need and I see this kind of like, I guess like means, motive, and opportunity, if you want to look at it like that.
No, that's right.
And then you just kind of like, okay, it's making these kind of like not, it's like an educated leap, not necessarily like a complete leap of faith, but it's like, I've kind of done, I'm kind of doing the calculus in my head and I think I can get there. And if I can't get there, like on my own, I know somebody else who can help me get there.
Yeah, I mean, and on that, what you said is exactly right. Like, for example, I started learning graphic design in 1996 when I did the logo. I started doing it on computers in 96. And that's when I learned what vector graphics were. So fast forward to 2003, in 2005, when I opened my first shop, my first retail shop, and I saw there was a lack of American-made guitars on the market. I was starting, YouTube was relatively new at that time. It was almost brand new at that time, I think. And when it started, I realized, wait a minute, these machines they're cutting these guitars with, they're called CNC machines. And I think I had a customer tell me about it. And I went, oh, they're using vectors. They're using X, Y, and Z. Well, I draw vectors. Surely I can program this, So it was a little bit of, you're right, Brandon, a little bit of, okay, I don't have all the skill set yet there, but I think I can get there. But the second thing is some of it is you just, I got to figure it out. I got to figure out how to do that, so. And then some of it, then you're, I'm at $500,000 in debt. I better figure this out. I got to figure this out now. So
that's something that we've heard from a few of our guests is that just the idea that like there comes a point where you're not desperation exactly, but kind of where you're just like sink or swim, man, you know?
No, that there comes a point where you have to take that risk. And it's the same risk that I think that, I'm going to just kind of say it's the same risk that these musicians decide when, hey, I'm going to move to LA, I'm going to move to New York, I'm going to launch my band. What they're doing is they're launching a business. That's why you see a lot of these musicians that are entrepreneurs, right? That's why you see, Dr. Dre. And that's why you see all these different musicians like Jennifer Lopez and Chris Stapleton, whoever it is. They've got other businesses, right? Because they're really musicians are entrepreneurs too by default because they design a brand, they market it from day one. So you pick up these skills and you learn how to do it, and but you're right, they sink or swim. And since I didn't say, I want to go to New York and get all my eggs in that basket as a performer, or LA, I did it in other ways. I just put them all here.
Well, that's one of the reasons I've always admired you and wanted to talk to you is because I feel like you kind of set up shop in Statesboro, which for people who don't know, it's maybe not quite in the middle of nowhere, but it's also kind of the closest city you've got is Savannah, which is like an hour away on the coast.
Right.
And if you like say it's about at least about 2.5, 3 hours to Atlanta, depending on traffic.
Oh yeah, we're easily 3 hours to Atlanta, and it's probably closer to more North Atlanta.
Yeah, I mean it's like Atlanta being like, I guess, the next biggest. I mean, Macon's a pretty big city, but a lot of like if you don't live in Georgia, you probably don't know much of anything about Macon. So most people would just see like Atlanta. So you've got that being your closest thing, and just a lot. And it's just kind of like Statesboro. It's like really the biggest thing in Statesboro that most people know would probably be like Georgia Southern, the college. That's because of football.
That's right.
But that's like right. This is where you kind of set up your own little, music empire.
Yeah, and you're right. It is. And it was, and we had our challenges at first because little things like screen printing on our amplifier chassis, like when you screen print. I got a bunch of local screen printers to try to screen print because I knew it was a screen printing process. None of them knew how to do it. They would try and they would use water-based inks, which would flake off, or they would use plastisol, flake off. So then I ended up reaching to people out in Atlanta, and they realized, oh no, we have to use enamel for that. So then all of a sudden you're learning all these things because I don't have the technical manufacturers around me to ask these questions to. So all of this stuff, or Googling, YouTube University, calling people that I knew that were in a similar industry, but not. And actually, I learned the enamel process. Trainer was really good. Trainer Amps, actually, Yorkville, Brandon. I called him one day and I said, hey, it's Chris Mitchell with DevilCat Amps. I love the quality of your screen print on your amplifiers. I know this is weird. I said, but how do you guys do it? And they were cool enough to tell me. They're all Canadians. So they were super nice and polite, and they put the head of production on the phone with me. What, are you Canadian?
I'm not. I'm from Wisconsin, but
my wife is too.
I'm a fan of Canada.
Oh yeah, well yeah, I am too, and especially that day, because they gave me all their little tips and tricks. And so then the only place I could find that would do enamel screen printing was in Atlanta, and this place called Danker Print in Lawrenceville, Georgia. And then it was only find this place to do this quality of powder coating. So it was just so I've had to learn. Now we do a different model. We do a different place. We do powder coating out of Savannah. We do some what we call UV printing on substrates. We also do, all of the in-house, everything in our guitars is all in-house. We make our fretboards, our own bodies, our own woods, everything. Our hardware comes from different suppliers, but, other than that, so I've had to learn a lot,
I don't know. I can identify like the just feeling, that gut feeling, like recently I've had some of that where it's not a premonition exactly, but like you encounter a thing in your life, like the Vietnam vet or the guy at Chick-fil-A, and it's almost like there's this little glimmer of opportunity, right? And you sense that glimmer and you're like, if I don't do something about this, this is going to be gone.
Yeah.
It's just that little opening, that little doorway that opens for a second of possibility. Right. And then you got to act on it. You got to take action, and you got to be brave enough to do that. Right.
Yeah. And about what you said, it is kind of premonition. It is like a lightning. It's almost like let me say this, and I don't mean this in a necessarily religious way or anything like that, or I don't mean it in a, maybe a little more spiritual way. It's almost like like you have a vision of what you want to do, and then all of a sudden, with me at least, it's like, oh, I know I need to do this. I absolutely know I need to do this. And I can relate to that as a songwriter. Anybody who's written a song, they got an idea for it, and it came, and you don't know where it comes from. The ether, is it floating out there? How does it come down to you? And I'm not saying that, there's I'm just saying for me specifically, whenever I get an idea like that, I don't do it unless it scares me. And then if it scares me, I know that it's right. You know what I mean? And the thing is I've been scared every single time. A lot of people say, oh, you're so brave. I am fucking terrified. I'm terrified all the time when I do this stuff. Like when I launched something like when we decided to launch, like I said, 2 years ago, it was well, I'll tell you kind of the play of this, how this worked out. Is if you back up a few years to 2017, the guitars are doing well, the amps are doing, we're doing what we want to do. And a parent came up to me and said, hey, my kid missed X amount of days of lessons. And I said, we were using 5 different we were using one calendar app to do this, a different thing to keep up with lesson plans, a different app to keep up with attendance, a different thing. And I said, well, I looked up one app. I said, well, no, I mean, they were here that day. And I looked up at another one. Then I looked up another one. And then I realized I couldn't find this kid's lessons plans because the instructor hadn't written it. And I went home that night. That scared me so bad that I couldn't really effectively keep up with these kids' lessons that weren't my students. I went home that night, immediately started working on layout of the software that I had no idea how to program or code. I finished the layout. And when Ashley, I thought I kept her up, she came out and said, hey, babe. I said, oh God, did I wake you up? And she said, no, I'm going to school. It was already the next morning. I had no idea I had been up all night working on this and not stopped. So she greeted me at 5:30 in the morning, and I started at 7 o'clock that night. I had finished the whole layout, and then it took me about 3 to 4 months to find a developer that I worked with on that. And because we started doing the software, that's what brought the bank found out we were doing that. And that's what brought them out here with, to tour the factory and all this kind of stuff to launch ClerkHound. And so it was the same exact terrifying feeling that I had that somebody needs to do this shit. And I've got a certain amount of skill set that'll get me this far, but I need other people to get it that far. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And so so had I not had that interaction with that parent right then and there, I don't know that I ever would have built the software. And had I not built the software, that software, the bank wouldn't have ever come out and wanted me to build our point of sale software. And so now I've got partners in that. And what's crazy is that's going to end up being the biggest thing we've ever done. Our ClerkHound is going to be the biggest thing I've ever done.
Explain that a little more, because like you mentioned at the top of the show, you're getting into it now, but for the people who are not necessarily familiar with the part of the music business that you're in, to explain to them what ClerkHound is supposed to do. I know you're still developing it, but
actually it's fully on out, and we've got customers, so it's released to the public. And what ClerkHound is a point of sale, and it works with any kind of company. So it can work with if you run a comic shop, if you run for example, we've got accountants that use it, we've got music stores that use it. If you run a comic, you don't have to be just music store. I called it ClerkHound because it's not that I wanted to get out of the music industry, but I didn't want to limit it to the music industry, right? It can handle a lot of different industries. So it can do recurrent billing. There's another platform that it does. It can curate your campaigns. So you create your email campaigns and then create subscriptions and things like that. So it could be even used for companies that needed loot box subscriptions, that kind of stuff. I mean, it could literally be done like that. So the point is that, had I not learned that vector graphic in 1996, it wouldn't have led me to even think I could do the guitars or to build my own company websites. Well, if I hadn't done any of that, it wouldn't have led me to develop RosterHound. And had I not developed RosterHound, that wouldn't have led for me developing ClerkHound. So I see everybody's question is, how did this happen? And I have to think about it sometimes too, right? It's like when I look back, sometimes I'm like, damn, that's weird. That's really weird that all happened, but it did, you just, again, what happened that day, Brandon, was I knew that the software that I was using in the store was going defunct. They shut it down one day. They literally shut it down one day, and it was like, wow, I've let somebody control my future that just shut their software down. And that happened to QuickBooks point of sale last October 2023. They told all their people using QuickBooks, hey, we're shutting this down. I'm like, that really sucks when you built your whole entire business off of a point of sale, and you've got quotes, you've got invoices, you've got repairs, you've got all this different stuff in there. How are you going to track that if they go out of business? So that, again, it was like we started in the music industry.
Like the recent Microsoft thing, right? Like you have all this gigantic outage because all these computers everywhere were using this software, and then they try to do this update and it just takes down. Like someone was like, I heard a friend of mine who's in cybersecurity was like just trying to do like a rough estimate of just at like the Atlanta airport, how long it would take to go, because they have to go to each computer, each terminal. So you're thinking like 30 minutes to reboot this thing, like go take it to the like just the base software and do that, like multiply like 30 minutes time like thousands and thousands of
Oh yeah.
just the insane amount of like man hours that would take to do something like that. And it's
Yeah.
crazy to think about how with certain technologies they get so kind of what's the word I'm looking for, ubiquitous, or just
Yeah.
like so ever present, that like it's taken for granted until something goes wrong, and then you just watch like you just kind of watch like mass mass
Exodus,
hysteria all goes.
right. And I think in true fashion of what I like to do, like me, Russell, and Laura with our software company, we work really well together, and they're both smarter than I am, and so it's like one of those things where I never ever want to be the smartest guy in the room, and rarely am I, and if I am, I'm in the wrong friggin' room. I need to not be the smartest guy in the room. I want to surround myself with really good people. And Russell and Laura are super smart, and we work really well together because they have great business logic ideas for what the software. I tell them, here's what it's got to do. I'm going to make it look pretty, and they make my code work. But they also have great ideas of how that's going to work. Okay, yeah, but if you do that here, then this has to work here because of X, Y, and Z, and the stuff that I could never foresee. But in CMG and DevilCat fashion, the same sort of thing. Clarktown will be bigger because we don't have to buy a facility, right? We use Amazon Web Services. We don't have to buy a building. I don't have to buy another machine to make it. We are the machine that makes it, So we can handle more customers and more clients. And the interesting thing is that we still want it to be a relatively small company, and that would be the type of thing, Billy Joe, that we would sell. We would get it to a certain size, and when it's at that size, then we would say, okay, now it is too big for us to run the way we want to do it. Mm-hmm. Therefore, you buy it and take it to its next level, because for us, we like it. We like doing it. We like building stuff. And Russell and Laura are in the mindset of that. They like building stuff and engineering, designing things. We don't want to run a massive company out of that company. We want to build it to a certain point and be very happy running it, and either keep our client base great and happy, or if somebody else wants to come along, then okay. But the reality is that we built a fantastic point of sale. We've got clients in New York that literally use it on Broadway, and we've got clients in the West Coast, in California, clients in Connecticut, Ohio, Georgia, you name it, South Carolina, we've got them, and it's really cool that we've already seen some traction, but it's going to be a slow grow. It's not going to be we're not going to be some kind of weird overnight success.
Yeah.
Well, I'm curious, like you seem to have embraced this kind of entrepreneurial mindset that a lot of artists seem to struggle with. Like you talked about earlier about like how a lot of bands, like you almost kind of have to have that, like you're not just starting a band, you're starting a business. But it seems like a lot of artists have trouble kind of wrapping their head around it, or kind of allowing themselves to kind of adapt to it. Because I guess you think, oh, I'm an artist, I'm not a business person, but like you seem kind of take to it.
Yeah, I mean, I knew that I was a business person when I was 15. I knew that when I was trying to book my band and try to get somebody to pay me, I realized, well, I'm trying to make a business transaction here. It's kind of funny. Here's the irony. I don't love the business side of it. I love the art side of it. I love creating. But I realized at the end of the day, if I'm going to be able to create, I've got to be able to do something and manage the business side of it. And so, get on the point that I was kind of going at, I think that all songwriters are entrepreneurs, and even if they're not trying to sell their music, if they continue to write songs, they are looking for that next best song. That's what they're doing. And I'm not sitting there trying to write a number one hit. I'm trying to write a song that I really like, And so I am constantly thinking about, how am I going to write this and make it a little different? How am I going to do this? And so songwriters are naturally entrepreneurs because they're constantly creating new things. If you look at somebody like Jimmy Buffett, my God, he was able to not only, he branded an entire industry off of a song that wasn't a number one hit, but it was a massive hit. You know what I mean? It's not like you really ever heard Margaritaville on the radio. He made a live thing out of that. And, and it's not like and he was a definite consummate entrepreneur, right? He had that sort of entrepreneurial spirit. But so to say that I've embraced it, I have embraced it. I realize that's what I am. I'm a serial entrepreneur. My mind is always thinking about something else that I'm interested in. It's because I get joy out of that. I get joy out of like designing a guitar. Let me show you something. I'll bring something to you. It's kind of cool. Y'all got a second for that? Y'all got a second for that?
Yeah.
Okay, hold on a second. I'll be right back. Hold on. so a few years ago, we had a client that reached out to us, called, and his name was Corey Eckert, and he said, "Hey, I want to build this this kind of cool shaped guitar," and he sent me a picture, and I was like, "Oh, that's weird as hell." So, but I liked it, and the more I looked at the picture, the more I liked it. So we came up with a model. I said, "But there's only one thing, Corey." He said, "What's that?" I said, "I'm going to name it after you. It's going to be called the Eckert," because he bought like 6 of our guitars, and this guy's super cool, very patient with me, especially through COVID and all the things that we were trying to manage. So so today I come in, and I see this cool, crazy shaped guitar, right? And I know, hey man, I'm about to test that. Like right now, I'm looking over the finish, and I'm making sure that it's up to snuff, and it is. Everything looks really, really good on it. And this is what I was talking about. These tolerances to be able to inlay this pickguard material, in this thing have to be ridiculously tight. And matter of fact, that motherfucker is tight right there. I mean, we can do it. That is like the tolerance level, right? And so, just so cool to be able to create stuff and, to go through my design on the back so that you can reach that last fret with no problem. Because, like on a Les Paul, you're doing this, right? You're reaching around. Well, in this guy, my hand is right there with very ease, and I'm on that last fret with no problem. So that affects my shows, right? That affects how I'm performing live. And so I like to create things, and it's a I will personally never make a profit with CMG unless somebody does come along and say, "Hey, I want to buy this out from you," and that's the only time I'm ever going to make a profit for it, because I truly enjoy doing it, and do the math. If we build 100 guitars a year and the base price is $999, that is only $100,000 a year. I mean, come on, it's not, and so not all of them are sold at the base price. Some of them are $1,400, $1,500. But even if you did a law of averages, $125,000 a year. I mean, $150,000 company. That's a very small company, right? And so I think Fender builds more guitar in the first hour of production than we do all year. The first day of the hour, the first day.
So do you ever do custom builds for people that are
all
like?
the time? Yeah, this is a custom build for a guy. He liked that model, but he wanted to get it in that powder blue. So yeah, that's a custom build, and it is stunning. It really is.
So I know when we talked last week, you mentioned the dog shaped guitar that you made.
Yeah.
Is that the most creative guitar shape you've ever done, or the most outlandish guitar you've ever made for someone?
That's probably the most creative shape. I'm going to do another dog this year. When we went at the trade show last year, somebody said, "Can you make my dog a guitar?" And I said, "Yeah, I can make your dog into a guitar." I mean, it's not cheap, right? Those start at $3,000 because, my God, I have to literally take a picture of your dog, draw your dog, then I have to decide what parts of your dog will fit into a guitar. Then I have to decide. So there's engineering involved. Then I have to decide, okay, how am I going to program your dog? So usually what happens is, like the guitar dog, I cut a piece that's a positive, and then of course a piece that has negative. So we're doing inlay and stuff like that. So it's a challenge to do that, but it's fun. And at the end of the day, somebody's gonna have a dog guitar, or this guitar, any guitar. She's gonna have her dog on a guitar it's pretty cool. It's like the fact that we can do that. And I haven't drawn her dog yet, and it scares me that I'm gonna have to draw her dog. That does scare me. It's not like it's but I know I can do it. I know I can draw her dog. I'm just gonna one day Lane is gonna say, "Hey man, remember you said you're gonna draw that dog, but now it's fucking time." So then I'm gonna have to draw this dog.
So if I wanted one, I don't play guitar, but if I wanted one someday of my cat, you can pay me.
Absolutely, yeah, we did. So
the Teddy model.
Matter of fact, it was so successful at our last trade show, and you got to remember, we went there for the software for Clerkhound. We didn't go there for CMG and DevilCat because they're already sold out. So, so we go there, and Ashley looks at me at the end of it. She goes, she said, "Oh my God, we should just bring dog guitars to a trade show, and then have a sign that says, 'Get your dog made into a guitar.'" And and we thought, my God, because really and truly, people like it so much they do it. People love their animals, and they want to memorialize their animal, and I get it.
I've seen guitars like in the shape of the United States or like in the shape of like Texas. So,
yeah, that's right.
That's another good one. So people love their animals, and I think that's great. And that would be an easy sell, right? People also love their home states.
They do.
So,
They do.
like, you could make some of the states would be really boring though. Like,
That's right. Oh,
you know,
check this
Kansas.
out. It's Wyoming. Look at that wonderful
Right.
square. Right. Right.
Wyoming and Colorado would be pretty awful.
Right.
But I'm
Right.
sure there's some states that would be great.
We
Like
have built
Vermont.
Colorado flag guitars. We built Colorado flag guitars because they do like the flag in Colorado, and it does look cool in guitar. We built several. We built 3 of those, I think.
Well, yeah, you could do a whole thing of just making them square and then just paint the flag on
the
them.
flag
so
in it. Yeah, that's right.
it's really funky. You feel like a little wave in it, you know.
We did actually. If you look at our website and you see CMG guitars and you look at the customs, there's some with the waves and it has the and we used a real flag on that. We had an American flag, and when James put it on the finish, and we're shooting polyester because it holds it on a lot better. We put it on the finish and he kind of twisted it, did a little twist in it to give the waves in the flags. That's pretty cool. You know, we've done that. And the secret to make it look like a worn flag is you stain it in tea. You put it in tea to stain it. That way it looks dirty. But because not everybody wants a brand new stark white American flag. They want that thing to look like Old Glory. So you do that.
Yeah. So I mean, as we're coming up on the hour mark, tell the people where they can find you online if they want to, come learn about all the many things that you do.
On our guitars, it's CMG Guitars, and that's chrismitchellguitars.com, cmgguitars.com. Both of them will take you there. On DevilCatAmps.com, plaidmusic.com for a Pladd Dot, clerkhound.com for clerkhound, rosterhound.com for rosterhound, our lesson software. And really, like I said, it's I love everything that I do, and I've realized though that there's only so many of them going around. So usually what I've learned now to do is if I have to remove myself from one of them, like for example, the retail store, out of all the things that I run, the retail store is probably the easiest to train somebody to manage outside of that, right? So now I've got a store manager that he's doing a good job with that. And it's not like I can train somebody to program and build guitars or amplifiers. That's a different skill set. It's not like I can train somebody to to take over another area of the company. So I've removed myself from the day-to-day of inside the retail store. I'm still teaching 2 days a week, still teaching, about 15 students. And I'm finally now starting to see where that's not going to be forever. Not because I don't want to, it's because Clerk Hound is going to require a lot more of me in the future. And so I've got to go there too,
Nice. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining us. It's been awesome talking to you, and wish you all the best. And yeah.
That will be all for this episode. To keep up with the show, follow us on social media at Scratch Claw Push. If social media isn't your thing, you can contact us at scratchclawpush@gmail.com. To learn more about the show, visit scratchclawpush.com. This podcast has been a Carcutta Media production. This recording, or any portion thereof, may not be reproduced or used in any manner whatsoever without the express written permission of the publisher, except for the use of brief quotations in a review. Copyright 2024 by Carcutta Media, LLC, all rights reserved.